I thank my chair for recognizing me and allowing me to second this very important motion. Honorable Speaker, I beg to second. I will start with the alarm bells that our chair has just rung. This financial year of 2023-2024, the CFS expenditure will be at 1.84 trillion. Honorable Speaker, will you ask the members who are consulting loudly to
proceed? The members are not that loud. Just proceed. Order members. Honorable Jeanette and team.
Yeah.
Honorable Jeanette. Thank you.
Thank you,
proceed,
Mr. Speaker. Let me start with saying that the alarm bells that has just been rung by our chair regarding the CFX expenditures. It is important for this House to note that in the year 2023-2024, the CFX expenditure, the CFS, the Consolidated Fund Services expenditure, will be 1.84 trillion. That is a huge number. That is about 51% of our national budget. That figure, Honorable Speaker, does not come through this House. I remember in the last few weeks, we have been staying here overnight, every night until midnight, just to argue about $200 billion that was addition to the finance bill. But here we are, very lackluster, and we are not even minding an expenditure of 1.84 trillion. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, by the year 2027, as was already said, this figure will balloon to 2.2 trillion. Unless this House does something, unless this country does something about that kind of expenditure, then we are going into a financial mayhem. I suggest that we go into financial consolidation and financial discipline. Mr. Speaker, sir, the fiscal deficit limit is targeted to be 4.4% of our GDP. I want to remind this House, we just recently debated the debt anchor, and we pegged it at 55% of our GDP, the debt to GDP, 55% debt to GDP at present value. Mr. Speaker, sir, it behoves us as a House to hold the National Treasury to account and to make sure that our fiscal deficit limit should not be more than 4.4% of our GDP. And going forward to the year 2027, our fiscal deficit to be reduced to 3% of our GDP. This is in line with what we have just done the other day by moving from a debt ceiling to a debt anchor of 55%. We have given the National Treasury 5 years to comply with this 55% debt anchor. Mr. Speaker, sir, our public debt stock. Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering why I'm seconding and my thing is at yellow already. This is a very important thing. It's not.
Honorable member, you have 5 minutes. Proceed.
Okay. I am getting concerned, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the national debt has gone to 10 trillion. Out of that 10 trillion, Mr. Speaker, it is very important that this House finds out the intergenerational equity of these loans that we are taking. Mr. Speaker, every time we hear the executive has signed this and that loan, and we don't know where those loans are going, and it is important that as a House, we must follow the dictates of our Constitution and make sure that the loans we are taking, that both intergenerational equity and geographical equity is followed. Mr. Speaker, sir, my chair has already talked about the 50-50 MTDS, 50% domestic, 50% external. This House has passed that report. Unfortunately, a few days later, we passed another report, the budget policy statement of 80-20. I think it is important that this House takes note of these reports that we are passing. Today we pass X, tomorrow we pass Y, and they are contradicting each other. Mr. Speaker, sir, I urge that the House takes notes of these very important reports and just don't say aye and nay. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we have gone from a defined benefits contribution, defined benefit scheme to a defined contribution scheme as far as our public pensions are concerned. Unfortunately, the idea of moving from defined benefits to defined contribution was to reduce the pension burden on the public. But as already said, the pension burden is increasing, and it is important that this House follows up on that and makes sure that the public servant superannuation scheme is fully funded and for the benefit of the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to second.
Very well. Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the Consolidated Fund Service expenditures under the financial year 2023-2024 budget estimates laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 21st June 2023. The first person to take a bite on this one is Honorable Beatrice Elachi. Thank you. Every member will have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. Proceed.